Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to use the Hypixel API along with Google Sheets so you can track some data. I'm going to be tracking collection data this time. So if I go on my own Skyblock, I'm just going to be collecting this data here. I'm going to be specifically collecting lapis lazuli because I collect a lot of it. I'm actually in the top 200, and as you can probably see by my setup. Anyway, I'm going to go back to explain a bit of the code. So what you want to go to is go extensions and then app script. I already have my app script open and I've already coded it. Normally I'll code it with you guys, but today I've already coded it so I can more explain it. So what would happen is if you just made a new file, or if you just started, you'll just see this. So let's just call this anything. You'll just see my function. That doesn't matter. What matters is what you put inside. So I'm just going to delete this. Also, if you just want to try the code out for yourself, I'll send a GitHub link with my own API key and my own profile setup, so you can try my code as well if you want. Just look in the description for that. So the first thing that we need to explain is when you play Minecraft, you have a username. My username is nh3, but for every username there's a UUID. And this UUID is just a unique identifier which separates my account from someone else's. So the first thing that I'd want you to try is actually to copy and paste this link with your own username. So I've already done it, but as you can see, it returns my name and my ID, which is a UUID. So essentially, what happens when we use this HTTP link, we're doing a GET request, and this GET request is just returning some data, and in this case, the UUID. To get this data, we're just going to fetch it using a variable response. All these functions should work on your app script straight away. Once we fetch the data, we're going to do a quick error check. So you see that there's a random number here. You might find this number a bit random, but 200 always means success when you do a HTTP request. You might have heard of 404. 404 is a type of HTTP error, which means that you didn't return anything. If you actually look at the Hypixel API, and I'll send a link to this, you can see there's other types of responses. So there's, like, say 200, 400, 403. These are just different numbers. What we want to do is make sure we've got 200. 200 always means success, so that's what we're just making sure about. Then we're going to log, so console.log will just print this data. We're going to convert it. So when it comes back in this weird format. It comes back as a HTTP request. We just want to get the content within it, so we're just going to log the content. And then if you look up here, you can see that it's got these weird curly braces. This means JSON, so that means we need to read the JSON. So we just pass it, and then we can get the ID value, which is this value, by just doing .id here. So I'm going to quickly run this code so you can see what I mean. Again, this code will be on my GitHub if you want to test it yourself, or if you don't follow along as well. You can see for the first console.log, which corresponds to this, you can see that we got the exact same response as we did when we put it in that browser. And then you can see for the next one, which is the UUID, we have just printed it and separated it from these curly braces and the name. Okay, so now we are going to move on to actually accessing the Hypixel API. So you'll need to click on this link now. It's a bit confusing if I'm being honest with you, but it makes sense once you kind of understand what's going on. You want to go to Skyblock, and then profile by UID, and you'll see that they're given an example, and they're given where we need to send our next GET request to. So we're going to be getting a bunch of this data. So if I just uncomment some of this code, you can see that we have accessed this link from the API, but we need to do a few more things. You might notice that we have a key, and this value is equal to my key. So if you want to get your own key, you just need to go onto the Hypixel server and type /API. And it'll say I already have an API, but for you it'll come up with a key, and what you want to do is just copy that key and then chuck it in here. You can make variables and stuff to hold the key, doesn't really matter. I'm gonna probably delete my key before I upload this video, just so no one can accidentally get me banned. Anyway, so then the other field is UUID, and you might notice it's separated by this end. This just means two different queries. So when you see the question mark, it means query. So the first query we're doing is for key, and then the end means that we're doing a second query, and that's for UUID. And of course, we worked out our UUID before, UID, sorry, and we're just going to add it on here. So now what we're essentially doing is calling, if I run, I don't want to run this just yet, but if I run this just to get our UID again, and then if I copy this, and you can copy this and do it in your browser as well, it's super simple. So if you run it in your browser, you should get a bunch of data returned, and this is the Hypixel API returning data. And right now it's really confusing. Like, it makes absolutely no sense because it's all in JSON. It's really hard to read. But what you can do is just copy and paste it, and you can just look up JSON parser online, and it'll help you understand the data a bit more. And we'll actually be going through the data, trying to look for collections soon. Anyway, so we're going to go back. We're going to uncomment this code now. Sorry, this is meant to be a comment. So we're going to send our GET request and fetch the data again. And like last time, we're going to make sure it is 200, which means success. Then we're going to uncomment a little bit more. And we are just going to, like last time, since it's in that JSON format again, we are going to have to pass it. Okay, and now we're kind of up to the step where we got all the data, so we got this data, but we now need to get the actual lapis lazuli collection. So you might notice that it's kind of weird. So let me just close this off. So this is kind of like what the data looks like from the top level. So we need to now open profiles, where there's two of them. And let's close everything up. So you'll see that there's two profiles. And now that they're fully closed up, we have one for watermelon and one for tomato. If you don't know what profile you're playing on, you can just go back to Hypixel, and you can select whatever profile. Maybe you play on more than one profile. I personally only play on my tomato account. So I'm just going to look for the profile called tomato, and that's this one here. And you might notice that the profile ID corresponds actually to your UID. So we're going to look at profile D, and this is the second profile. And then we're going to open up members. Let's close everything again. Here's your UID again. You want to open that up. Let's close everything. Let's close everything. Everything will take a while to close because Hypixel sends you a bunch of data. But if you want any of this data, feel free to just look for it yourself. I'm just posting a quick tutorial, but as you can see, there's a bunch you can look into. You can look into and find how many fairy souls you collected, how many Slayer bosses you killed. It's just so much. We're just looking for collections. So we're just going to keep closing these until I find collections. And we're coming up to it. And here we go, collection. So you'll see all your collections now. And this number that corresponds after it is how much of that collection you actually have. So this corresponds to your in-game stats. We're going to find the lapis lazuli one because that's the one we were after. For some reason it's under InkSac 4, and that's literally just because if you go to the collection, the lapis lazuli is counted as a die, and for some reason in Minecraft that object is called an InkSac. But if you wanted to say wheat, let's go to the farming wheat. You can see that it's a bit of wheat. So if you go in here, you just look for wheat, which I thought I saw, but maybe not. Unfortunately, it's not in alphabetical order, so I'm really struggling right now. Here's wheat. But obviously, we're only after InkSac 4. Okay, so now how do we actually do this in the app script side? Let's go back. What we're going to do is chuck it in a try and a catch. For some reason, when you ping the Hypixel API, sometimes it throws an error back. So that's the only reason we have it in this try and catch. Essentially, if the try fails, it'll go to the catch, and that will just console log that we have an error collected in the ink sac. And we're just going to return because we don't want the Google script to do anything more if it has an error. So essentially, to get the lapis collection, we want to go to our past data. We want to go to the profiles like we did above. If I go back here, we want to go to the profiles. We want to go to the second profile, which was tomato. And since all code, well, most coding languages start at 0, obviously the second profile will be 1. So that's why it's set to 1. And then you want to go to members. Our member ID was our UUID, so hence why I put UUID here. And then you want to do dot collection. So dot collection will just be one of these. And as you can see, they're all in the same order. So if you want to get sacs count, you just do dot sacs count. And then you want to do the actual value that you want to get. So we're trying to look for inksac-4. Now you might be a bit confused as to why I use, say, this and the dot sometimes. It doesn't matter which one you use. So I could have done members. As you can see, I used dot members, but I could have also done members. The only reason I have to use the brackets on, say, UID or the inksac is because these values are kind of like a bit more arbitrary. They're not really part of the JSON, and they'll break the code if you don't use it. So that's the only reason I use it. And yeah, so now if we move on, we can console log the lapis data. So let's see if it works. And yep, so we've got our 257, 656, 877. So you can just go into your account, go to the collection, check the collection you're trying to find. There we go, 257, 656, 877. I'm not too sure how quickly it updates. We can just collect some more lapis now. I'm not really sure if that updated or not, but I'm sure it takes a bit of time anyway to update on the Hypixel servers. And the last thing we want to do is bring it all back to our spreadsheet. This is the simplest part, so I'm just going to uncomment this last bit. What you need to do is get the current spreadsheet that you're using. I'm using the Hypixel one, this one called Hypixel. The name is important, so what you want to do is go down here and rename your sheet to whatever you like, but just remember what the name is. I've called my one Hypixel. Maybe I'll call it collections instead, just to prove a point. So I've called it collections, and then you want to get the sheet by name. So we're going to get collections. Now where you want to put this variable, you go and find the spot. So this is in B1, so you can see the B and the 1. So you go sheet.getRange B1, and then you just want to set the value to the lapis collection, which we collected here before. So now if I press run, for some reason it didn't enter, but let me just save it to make sure. And let's press run again. And okay, now we have the value appearing. So that's pretty sweet. You can do the same for oak and wheat or whatever one of these fields from this huge list of data that Hypixel gives us. The last thing you want to kind of do is you just want to you want to go to this little bell which says triggers, and you want to go down to the bottom right. You probably can't see it because my camera's in the way, but I promise you in the bottom right there's a plus add trigger. You want to just press that, select return lapis or whatever you decide to call your function, and then this last one you probably just want to change it to either on open, on edit, on change. I'm just going to put mine to on change and then press save. Essentially what this trigger does now is every time I change something on my spreadsheet, this lapis value will be repinged, so it will redo the function. So I'm just gonna try and collect some more lapis. So I've collected some more lapis, and now I'm just gonna change something in my spreadsheet. In all honesty, I don't know how often the Hypixel API refreshes, so it's kind of based on that, I guess, more so than the trigger. But it just essentially means that if you have a long session, you play it. When you go back to your spreadsheet, when you open it up, this value should have changed. Anyway, all the code that I posted here will be on my GitHub. If you want me to do more videos on this, I can do more videos. I'm trying to keep my content more coding related and less gaming related, but I'm happy to do more videos. So hopefully you got something out of this, and I'm glad if you did. Oh, there we go. Our value is updated, by the way. I find Google Sheets is super accessible for anyone. You don't need any coding environments, and you can essentially copy and paste this code and learn it in your own time, or just shoot me a message. Thanks for watching.